Good evening, good evening, good evening again. Man, back for the first time. I realized I had some technical difficulties and I was able to get it, and I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for just thankful for the opportunity of being back. And this is the real one. And we're gonna get right into it, man. Again, thank you guys so much. I'm very appreciative of your continued support, and I thank you guys for rocking with your boy. Has the sound wasn't on, so now the sound is on. I was able to fix that, and here we go again. So again, man, I'm sharing this. Make sure that you like and share this, or just join in on the conversation. But we're gonna get right into it, and again, thank you guys so much, and I'm just grateful. So hey, tonight, man, we want to start off with a conversation again. That's going to be, I feel like it's going to be very thought-provoking, and just a good conversation, because it's something that I think that we all deal with, and I feel like it is something that if we embrace, we'll find things to be better. But we're going to go ahead and get started with it, and we're going to talk about the healing power of taking full ownership of the role you played in your failures. And there are it is very therapeutic to get to a space to get to a space and get the courage and build up the courage to embrace or take ownership of the role we played and the things and the choices and the decisions that we played into our own failures. Because naturally, it's so easy for us to want to point the blame to somebody else. But the reality is, our choices are a result, our consequences are a result of our choices. And yes, I acknowledge that there are some things that some people may contribute to us, may have contributed to the things that we failed in. But the reality is, in order for us to truly grow and grow beyond that individual failure, that singular failure, we first need to embrace the role we played in it. Just embrace that role that we played in it. Because, watch this. This is the reality. This is a reality, a true reality, right? Nobody likes being wrong. Nobody. I will argue it'd be safe to bet that nobody likes being wrong, because I know I don't. But the reality is, we're all going to be wrong in things. We're all going to have things that we're going to fail at. We're all going to have things. We're all going to have to deal with those things in our lives. Facts. Nothing we can, that's just a reality of life, right? But once we get to a space to acknowledge the wrong that we do, as soon as we acknowledge the wrong that we do, that's when we can tap into what I call our superpowers. Because our superpowers means that, hey, I know I take it. I acknowledge, not only acknowledge, but I take ownership of the role I played or the decision I made. So now when I take ownership of it, now nobody else can control that or use that over me, because I assume responsibility for it. And by assuming responsibility, now I exercise my power to take control over me. And one of the things that happened is this one thing that we don't like to do. We like to attempt to blame other people for put the responsibility of our consequences on other people, because we don't want to assume responsibility for the decision that we made. Yes, other people may contribute to the things that we've done, or they may have contributed to the situation that we may find ourselves in. But the reality is, we're the one that made the decision. Nobody else did. So in that, when we want to try to make it somebody else's responsibility, then what we end up doing is we wasting a lot of energy, and we'll stay stagnant and stay stuck in a space to where, guess what? We just want people to, we'll just stay stuck in a space and point the blame and have a woe is me mindset. And guess what? Years will pass us by and we'll stay stuck in the same place. All because we refuse to take ownership of our own choices, right? Yeah, this one thing about it. Somebody else may be responsible for a situation or a circumstance that you may find yourself in. Somebody else may be responsible for it, right? But you are, it is somebody, I'm sorry, somebody else may have caused something to happen to you, but you are the one that made the decision or the choice that you made in that situation. So regardless of if you like it or not, you are the one held responsible for your decisions, for your choices. And it's almost like when you look at sports, and you always, and coaches always tell you, hey, don't retaliate, because the last one seen doing the act is the one that's caused the penalty on. And yes, somebody may have pushed you, and yes, they had did wrong by you, or they may have antagonized you. But at the end of the day, if you're the one that caught in the act of reacting, you're the one that's going to have to bear responsibility, because everybody's not going to see what somebody else did. And even though some people may not see it, most people don't even care. You know, the reality, we oftentimes expect other people to care way more about our situations and circumstances than they actually going to. I mean, we sit around and we want people to have empathy towards us, or operate in a place or a space of understanding with our situation. And the reality is this: the longer that I've lived, I learned most people won't really genuinely care about what you had to go through. If we just being honest, most people do not care what you had to overcome to get to where you at. So while you're walking around trying to blame all of your failures or everything that you have going on what somebody else didn't do, you know, you're grown, you're an adult now, you still blaming your parents about stuff that may have happened to you. Yes, it was, but look, that happened to you when you was 15 years old and you're 35 right now. That was 20 years ago. You know, all of the consequences you're dealing with right now is a result of your choices, not their lack of what them doing their role. And we sit around and we will get upset because we expect the world to have a pity party for us. And the reality is the world don't care as a whole. They don't care what you had to overcome. They don't care. You know, we waste a lot of time hoping other people would care about our things that we've had to deal with, or what we've had to overcome, the challenges that we had to face, the barriers that we had to overcome. But the world don't care. The world don't care that you grew up in poverty. The world don't care that you didn't have the resources. The world or people don't care about your shortcomings. They don't care what you had to overcome. They don't care what, most of the time, they don't care what contributed to you failing, to your failures. So why, in a sense, where we're going to spend invest so much time, energy, and effort into expecting somebody else to just feel sorry for us so that we can stay in it? Because the reality is, as soon as we get the strength and the courage enough to embrace and say, you know what, I take ownership of this, that's when we can unlock our superpower. Because guess what? That's when we can start to heal. That's when we can start to heal. Because it is imperative, right? Because the thing at the core, foundational core of healing is the fact that we have to forgive ourselves. And we have to learn to forgive ourselves, and we have to learn to be in the space to forgive ourselves. But in order to forgive yourself, you first got to take ownership of the choices or the decision that you made. And that's one thing, and I see, like, one of the things that I truly learned about healing, right, is that the hardest thing in healing is first forgiving yourself. And the reason why it's hard to forgive yourself is because the natural things that we do is we'll look to justify our point blame at what these things that happen to us. And it's a natural thing. We look, oh, well, that's why this happened, and this what led me to it. The reality is, you got to say, you know what, I made that decision. I know that what they did, but I made that decision, and I'm taking ownership of it, and forgive myself. And once we get to that space, I promise you, we will find that life will become a little bit better to navigate. That doesn't mean that we're not going to fail, right? That doesn't mean we're not going to fail, because it is a 100% fact that you will fail multiple times in your life. 100% fact. And I know failure is something hard to embrace because many of us, we grow up in environments to where we, sometimes failure or having to face failure, especially if you're used to having an environment where you're a supportive environment, it is hard to a hard pill to swallow. It's something hard that we have to take in. Why? Because it can overwhelm us when we're not used to it. But there's some invaluable lessons learned in our failures. But in order to, the key to unlocking the key to unlocking the vase or the cabinet to our success is embracing and taking responsibility for our actions. And when we embrace and take responsibility for our actions, that's when we'll begin to see a different change in our lives. We'll begin to see a lot of things differently. And when we embrace our failures, or when we embrace and take ownership of the things and the roles that we play, when we begin to embrace that, what we'll begin to do is we'll begin to realize that, guess what? Things don't seem as we begin to learn lessons a lot faster. That's why when in the Bible and when it said count it all joy when you face various trials and tribulations. And I can remember when I first gave my life to God, and I was like, dang, what you mean by like count it all joy? But I begin to understand that, Robert, in the process on this 4-letter word called life, in this journey called life, you're gonna fail. And guess what? You can find joy in your failures, because in those failures, those are the lessons on this journey called life that I need you to learn so that you can be positioned to fully walk in the destiny and your purpose that I destined you to walk in. But that's not an easy thing to get to. Like, nobody likes to fail. And I said it earlier, but nobody likes to fail. Nobody likes to say, hey, look, that's not a good feeling. It's not. And a lot of people, we try to hide it like it doesn't bother us, but nobody likes failing. And I would tell you, especially if you're in a space, and this is a thing, right? Nobody likes failing. But if you especially if you find yourself in a space to where you are dealing with failure, or failure is always around you, it can erode on your confidence, or it can erode on your mental health to the space where you just walk around feeling defeated, and you will have to carry a heavy, heavy load just with you, because you feel like you will begin to feel, and you emotionally, you will begin to embrace that feeling of failure. But when we say, you know what, I will take full responsibility of the role I played in this, what you will start doing is you will start to empower yourself, because guess what? You're not taking on that role. You're taking on your choices. And it's easy to take on the brunt of your choices because you know what? You made them, right? It's easy for me to pay my bills, but it's a problem when I have to pay the cost for other people. And choosing to take full ownership and say, you know what? I'm just going to pay for myself. I'm not paying for somebody else. I'm not paying for what they did to me. I'm not paying the cost for what they did to me. I'm not paying the cost. I'm not paying the full cost for anybody. I'm not making it rain for these folks no more. I'm not doing it. What I am going to do is I'm going to take full responsibility and accountability for myself. And guess what? I'm going to take responsibility for the role I played, Listen, and I want people to understand this. This right here, it is in no way to justify anything, but there's a lot of people that are in relationships, and relationships has dissolved, but they were sitting around here and they always blaming the other person for why the relationship didn't work. But you would never hear them talking about what they didn't do, or what they did do, or what they didn't do. Because guess what? In their mind, their other person's action will always justify what their inaction or what they didn't do. But then guess what? They have the wrong mindset. And them same people will find themselves going to new relationships and having the same problems. All because, guess what? They refuse to take full ownership of the role that they played in that relationship. You know, you want a good spouse. You want a good girlfriend or boyfriend. You want attentive. right? You just want things to be catered to you. But now guess what? Now you want to blame the other person. Oh, they didn't do this. They didn't do that. Well, what did you do? When are you going to take responsibility for the role you played and the things you didn't do? You got to own that. You have to own that. And it's easy for us to say that, but you have to own that and take responsibility. But you really don't. I'm just saying, you really don't. I'm just being honest with you, don't. But the reality is you still going to have to deal with those consequences. And we can argue that if we want to. We can argue that till we blue in the face. But until we start really embracing that, we'll find ourselves stuck in a space, just stuck in a space. And why am I speaking on this? Why am I talking about this? Well, failure is something that is not easy to embrace because we don't like being wrong. I know I don't, but naturally we don't like being wrong. We don't like letting people down, or we don't like not meeting the mark. And when we're talking about failure, you don't have to be a failure to take ownership in what the decisions you made that contributed to that particular thing failing. Right. And that is a space, and that is being in a mental space to say, you know what, I'm going to choose to be an adult. I'm going to choose to be mature enough so that I can go in and I can fully embrace and take responsibility of what I did. And I'm not going to look for somebody else to take that responsibility, because guess what? I made those choices. I did it. And guess what? And with that, I can say I made those choices. I take responsibility for the choices I made. But that still, even though I failed, that doesn't mean that you, oh man, this right here is good. It is good. And I want everybody to hear this. I want everybody to hear this. Just because you may have failed in something, that doesn't mean that you're a failure. And one of the things of getting to that space, right, what separates you from not being a failure when you're failed at something is your ability to take full ownership and responsibility for the role you played in it. And what that does is it separates you from the act. But until we take full ownership, we continue to keep ourselves tied to it. Like we won't grow from that. We won't learn from the mistakes or what led to that. And that's what separates you from being a failure. Even though you may have failed, even though you may have contributed, even though some of your decisions and your choices may have led to where it being, you would not be a failure if you say, you know what, I'm going to take full accountability for the role and the choices I made in it. And once we embrace that, I'm telling you, you will release yourself to be free. You will release yourself to be free on your path to healing. You will release yourself to be free from being bogged down based off of that experience. You will release yourself. You will grow. You will learn. There's so many things that will be revealed to you in those spaces. But most of the time, we don't like doing it because it's just so much easier to blame somebody else. And I've seen many people say this before, but they said accountability feels like an attack when somebody is not ready to take responsibility, take responsibility for their actions. And a lot of times the same thing when we refuse to take ownership. We will be so much in a victim mindset, so much in a woe is me mindset that we will be just hard to be around, and people will get tired of being around us because we will act as if we are the victim. And reality is we just the one that is not, we just in our pride, we in our feelings, and we don't want to be held accountable. We want the freedom to operate, but we don't want the responsibility that comes with the choices that we made. So just embrace it. Hey, don't sit around and try to put that on somebody else. Embrace that thing. Embrace it. Walk in it. Be accountable. Say, you know what? I did it. I did it. It's on me, and I'm going to walk in it. And you'll find out the consequences ain't as hard as we think it is on a lot of things. But, man, I just want to thank you guys so much for rocking with me. Apologize for some technical difficulties, but, man, we're episode 135. We've been going strong. I'm looking forward to just continue this journey, continue to talk. Hey, go ahead and like me on all social media platforms at The Conversation 98 on YouTube, The Conversation 98 on Instagram, at 98 Conversation on Twitter, on Facebook, The Conversation 98, and at The Conversation _98 on TikTok. You guys, I appreciate you all. Thank you guys so much for rocking with me. You guys have a blessed and wonderful evening. God bless.